Welcome to This Explainer. If you are on a PC every single day, you've probably felt it. That subtle, kind of annoying shift. For decades, Windows was literally the default, right? Whether it was for intense gaming, knocking out school assignments, managing heavy workloads, or just turning on a computer to browse the web, it was the gold standard. You booted it up, and boom, you got things done without having to think too hard about it. But as we sit here in 2026, man, the landscape looks remarkably different, and user sentiment has really shifted. Today, we're going to unpack exactly how and why Windows has completely transformed.
Which brings us to a pretty massive looming question. Is Windows still the user-friendly operating system we grew up with, or has it slowly morphed into something else entirely? Seriously, think about your own daily driver, that reliable PC you sit down at every morning. Does it still feel like it's there simply to serve your needs? Because lately, a lot of users are starting to report this really distinct creeping feeling. The feeling that their computer is no longer just a neutral tool waiting for instructions, but rather a platform that is actively trying to manage them.
Okay, let's dive into this. In the past, the dynamic was incredibly straightforward. Windows was a simple tool, and you were firmly in the driver's seat. You told it what to do, and it executed. Present day, however, points to a totally new reality. Windows operates way more like a platform that controls you. It dictates how you sign in, where your files are saved, and what services you ought to be using. It's a subtle but massive philosophical shift from user empowerment to platform compliance. Section 1. What is Enshittification?
Yeah, the term is actually Enshittification. Despite the colorful language, it's a very precise concept. It describes what happens when a product gets worse over time, not by accident, not because the engineers suddenly forgot how to code, but due to deliberate business decisions. So if you've been sitting at your computer wondering why things feel clunkier or more intrusive and assuming it must just be a bug or a misstep, well, this definition validates your frustration. It is totally by design.
The actual life cycle of this process always follows a really predictable pattern. Step 1. The product is fantastic for users. It builds a massive, loyal audience because it genuinely solves a problem well. Step 2. The company realizes they have a captive audience, and the platform shifts to prioritize business partners, advertisers, or internal metrics over the actual user experience. And step 3, the product becomes frustrating for absolutely everyone using it, except, of course, the company that owns it. By 2026, many tech analysts and everyday folks feel that Windows is sinking deep into Stage 2 and rapidly approaching Stage 3. Section 2. The everyday symptoms.
Let's look at the most relatable complaints in 2026. First off, promotions right inside your Start menu. You hit the Windows key to find your calculator, and instead you're offered a subscription or a game like Candy Crush you never even asked for. Next, we have aggressively pushed Microsoft services. The operating system is constantly nudging you to use their specific browser or their specific search engine. Then there are the pre-installed apps taking up your hard drive and visual real estate. And finally, standard user interface elements that have essentially morphed into interactive billboards. Turning on your PC today greets you with a wall of suggestions and feature creep instead of a clean, ready-to-work system.
And this brings us to the ultimate tax on your time and patience. Tasks that used to be a straight line, like a single click, now feel like navigating a maze. Basic settings like changing your default browser, tweaking privacy options, or managing startup apps have become totally buried. They feel way more layered and significantly less direct. It's a destruction of the simple computer experience. When the interface creates friction just to keep you on a certain path, that is Enshittification in action.
Section 3. The ecosystem shift. So, this shift represents a massive departure from how personal computers used to work. First, we see way more syncing by default. Your preferences, your wallpapers, your search history just sent to the cloud without you actively requesting it. Second, forced cloud integration. What used to be a nice optional convenience is now practically mandatory to get past the setup screens. And third, a growing dependency on online services just to use a local PC. The push toward mandatory Microsoft accounts tethers your physical local machine sitting on your desk to a vast corporate cloud ecosystem, whether you want it to or not. For some, sure, it's convenient, but for a lot of others, it honestly feels like an eviction from their own hardware.
Section 4. Bloat and feature creep. Now, what's really interesting about this is the heavy toll these features take. Modern Windows carries a massive amount of hidden weight. Over time, enormous features just get bolted onto the core operating system. We have deep cloud storage integration constantly checking your files. We have heavily pushed AI-assisted tools and Copilot-style features that are baked right into the taskbar. And to support all of this, you have an absolute army of constant background services running at all times. The trade-off for all these supposedly helpful additions is that the system feels significantly heavier and far less responsive.
Which leads us to this pretty stark realization. Even if you have decent hardware, plenty of RAM, a fast processor, you are running an operating system that is doing far more in the background than you ever asked it to. It totally validates that nagging feeling you might have. Your PC is quietly working for the company, crunching telemetry, syncing data, and running AI readiness checks, instead of dedicating all its resources strictly to the tasks you want to accomplish.
Section 5. The root cause, the business behind it. Let's be real, none of these annoying UI changes or forced logins are random glitches. They are driven by massive corporate goals. First up, increasing subscription revenue. They are pushing users toward recurring models like Microsoft 365. Second, promoting their own ecosystem services over competitors. Think about the push for OneDrive, the ever-pleading Microsoft Edge, and Xbox. Third, platform lock-in. If all your files and settings are tied to their cloud, it's incredibly painful to switch to a different operating system. And finally, they are fiercely competing with mobile-style ecosystems like iOS and Android, which already heavily rely on tied accounts and services. It all boils down to one absolutely crucial realization. Windows is no longer just an operating system, it's a service platform. This shift explains literally everything. It definitively proves that the move away from simplicity is a highly deliberate business model. It's not just a tool you buy once anymore, it is a storefront, an advertising board, and a data syncing service that you just happen to run your apps on.
Section 6. The ultimate user choice.
So here is the final dilemma users face as the frustration really builds up. It basically boils down to two paths. On one side, adapt to the heavily integrated ecosystem. You can accept the forced accounts, ignore the start menu ads, let the AI tools hum in the background, and just make peace with the platform's new direction. Or, on the flip side, look for alternatives with more local control. This is exactly why we are seeing a rising penguin-shaped wave of interest in Linux distributions, or users seeking out customized, stripped-down versions of Windows that actively block this ecosystem creep. It's a direct response to unwanted help from an operating system that no longer feels like your own. The source analysis makes it very clear. People aren't saying Windows totally stopped working. It still computes, it still runs the apps, but it changed direction. And that leaves us with this final provocative thought to chew on today. Ask yourself about your own machine. Does it still work the way you want it to? Or are you bending your workflow to accommodate the business needs of the platform? It's a fascinating and vital question as we navigate our tech-driven world. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.